Teacher writes insult on boy's homework, has no idea who dad is. A boy's homework has a letter from the instructor on it. When his parents learn that the 7-year-old tried to hide his emotions from them by walking home from school, they don't buy it. They pleaded with him to tell them what was really bothering him. After trying to brush it off, the 2nd grader ultimately took a piece of paper out of his school bag. That would be the hint that included every solution. Camden Pilland was a typical school child when he was younger. He wasn't an overachiever, but he wasn't a mischievous or terrible kid either, according to his parents. He wasn't very energetic, and he wasn't dependent on TV or video games. That's why his level of grief about anything that happened at school that day was completely unexpected. Camden's father became rather agitated after reading the note that was scribbled on the exam paper. His anger increased as he read it more, and with good cause. Camden had been attending Valley View Elementary School for some time, and the entirely regular public school had always been trouble-free. After he was moved up to the 2nd grade, everything changed. All of a sudden, Camden's parents were receiving an unusually high volume of criticism regarding their son. Chris made the decision to look into it more as he was curious whether anything was going on at school. It's no secret that most kids detest doing their schoolwork when they can spend their after-school hours visiting friends and playing games. Before he began to fall behind in his schoolwork, Camden's parents assumed he was just another typical school student. His parents found it hard to watch him struggle academically, as this abrupt transformation didn't start until he was well into grade 2. But why did all of this occur? Chris was aware that his child was capable of handling the challenges of 2nd grade, but the fact that the child was struggling raised red flags in his mind. He thought it was very out of character for Camden to be having academic difficulties. His father recognized it could have something to do with Melissa Rupp-Bohanec, his teacher, when he returned home with some criticism from her. His instinct would turn out to be spot on. Everyone has experienced a teacher who seems to be unsatisfied by anything. Not all pupils are as fortunate as others, particularly the timid and sensitive ones, even though some appear to have thick skin and perform well in their class. This was the exact type of instructor Camden had. Miss Alyssa Bohanec was well known at the school and appeared to be biased against Camden. The child kept it all to himself, but the unrelenting criticism was negatively impacting his confidence and sense of self. All parents hope for their child to excel academically. It might be rather distressing to learn that this is not the case at all. A parent may take a number of actions to help their kid improve their grades, including extra instruction, tutoring, spending more time watching them while they complete their homework, and overall being more involved. Giving the traditional tough love method has been shown to be ineffective, especially when the child is so young. It is tiring for even grown-ups to get unfavorable remarks. We acknowledge that dealing with criticism may eventually become necessary, but constructive or professional criticism is always more beneficial. Receiving criticism can always be quite damaging to one's self-worth and confidence. Just think of how much more upsetting it would be to a youngster if it came from an adult in a position of power. Teaching young children is a very different game than teaching any other age group. It goes beyond simply speaking out to people and hoping they would pay attention. You must give each and every pupil your whole attention. A teacher should, of course, be a good role model and mentor in addition to teaching students how to study efficiently. If the instructor was thinking that way about criticizing the kids, Chris didn't think this was at all how his son's teacher was doing her job. It's understandable that a parent would be offended by the kind of remarks made on Camden's math exam. Not only was that totally inappropriate, but Camden was obviously really upset by it as well, and nobody enjoys seeing their kids unhappy. The 7-year-old received a message from the instructor that said, "This is so sad." After 3 minutes, he had 13 answers. Sad. Chris was aware that this remark would not motivate his kid. In actuality, it would exacerbate the situation. Constructive criticism, whatever happened to it? The issue was that Chris found this statement to be the straw that broke the camel's back, even though it wasn't the first the instructor had made for Camden. It was the final straw, and he was going to take action. To make matters worse, the notifications were accurate from the start of the year. It was time to face this instructor. Posting an anxious thought or fear on social media has become a common practice among many individuals. This is frequently due to our ability to get so near to the problems that we are no longer able to perceive them properly. Chris was looking for a second opinion on this. He didn't anticipate having such a significant effect. Chris started off by simply laying down the information and including a photo of his kid brandishing the problematic exam paper. He knew that everybody would concur with him. Chris was astounded by how the article gained hundreds of likes, comments, and shares in just a short period of time. It seems that many individuals have strong opinions on what takes place in the classroom, how kids are handled, and what qualifications a teacher ought to possess. The knowledge that his intuition was correct and he hadn't been exaggerating at all made him feel a lot better. The teacher's critical remarks on the paper were not well received by most people. He answered just 13 of them in 3 minutes, and the top of it stated, with a sorrowful smile, "You don't write that on anybody's paper, let alone a little 7-year-old second grader's paper." As he appeared on more and more radio shows and newspapers, Chris stated, "It broke my heart." He was utterly incensed about the entire experience. I think the remarks he made on his paper were quite impolite and unprofessional. He was shocked and stated, and she messaged me back and said she was sorry I felt that way. However, what could she say about herself? It's not well understood that teaching is an easy job. It's a lot harder than just talking in front of the class. Since each kid learns differently, it is the teacher's job to determine how best to meet each student's needs in order to help them achieve in the classroom and in life. Chris felt that by making critical remarks, the instructor was taking the easy route and placing the responsibility on his kid rather than teaching him how to study. Nobody enjoys working in a bad atmosphere. Consider yourself as an example. No matter how hard you worked, if your supervisor was always picking fault, you would quickly lose interest in your work and resign. However, Camden still had a great deal of groundwork to cover as well as new proficiencies, jobs, and talents to acquire. It was not an option to give up. This instructor needed to realize that teaching in an engaging and innovative manner yields the best results. Chris was happy that his tiny Facebook post was providing him with so much validation. Then, though, things started to become worse. He was shocked to learn that every stranger who had come together in support of him had initiated a movement of their own. It had even gone so far as to inspire an internet petition demanding Bohanic's dismissal. Chris was certain that he wanted to move forward with this, and it was wonderful that so many others shared his strong feelings. This was now a severe matter. A hurtful remark might cost Miss Bohanic her career. She had to defend herself against the irate online community that continued to expand. Chris wanted her fired. After all, he was still so furious about the whole thing. It sounded like a fantastic idea to get his son a new teacher. Surprisingly, the petition was gathering an exceptionally large number of signatures already. More than 10,000 individuals supported the teacher's firing despite the lack of details or her version of events. Little Camden said, "She made me really sad and upset, but instructors at her school spoke up for Miss Bohanic, claiming she did not deserve to be dismissed at all. It was incredibly cruel to do, and I was furious. The instructor had done something wrong, everyone acknowledged, but should she be fired for it? It appeared to be an extremely severe penalty for something that might be changed with a strong talk. The school believed that her actions simply required a reprimand. They felt that firing her for this would be excessive. These young children are shaped into the people they will become by their teachers, parents, and other caregivers. The school made the decision to investigate the situation further and ensure that justice was done." Chris provided an update and stated, "Thanks to all the efforts and support of the dedicated people who signed and shared this petition, I'm happy to announce that the teacher in question is currently being investigated by the Valley View School Board." A news source claims that Rose Minity, the superintendent of schools, is aware of the comments made on the assignment. An inquiry was started following a meeting with the instructor and the Valley View School District. Would Chris, however, receive justice? As always, we're going to strive to do what's best for the kids and what we need to do for the media, Minity stated in answer to the reporters. Supposed to act, yet we must never lose sight of the fact that they are still only human. Despite all of the criticism, negative press, and indignation that Camden's teacher incited, it doesn't appear that his father's actions made much of a difference. Ultimately, the school district website states that Mrs. Bohanic is still employed at the school. Who knows if she received criticism for what she did, or even if the experience taught her a lesson. Such a tender age to be scarred from this form of abuse, a lady remarked in reaction to the article. Many of the so-called instructors that work in schools are unable to teach and have no regard for the students. Very little training or enthusiasm for the work. I was a teacher for 20 years until I retired. I really understand why a growing number of families and children are choosing homeschooling and other non-traditional learning options. Another expressed shock at the instructor's behavior, saying, "It's disgusting that this teacher can't control her thoughts and give the kids positive feedback while still promoting their learning. She should be dismissed." But these kinds of issues are common, and this was not a unique instance. Numerous kids have had comparable circumstances to Camden's, problems with a challenging teacher, and have been in similar situations. With her kid, Karen Eubank discovered herself in a similar circumstance. The mother didn't take her 9-year-old son's complaints about his cruel instructor seriously. Karen reasoned that, like other kids his age, he just needed some time to get used to his new school. Karen was cautious about what her kid said as well. She was aware that kids frequently accused teachers of being cruel, particularly when they were told to do their assignments. Regretfully, Karen was in error. Karen believed that everything was well and didn't take her son's concerns seriously. Although she was certain that her kid wasn't being singled out by the instructor, it came out that her son had been attempting to communicate with her and was very entitled to be unhappy. Similar to Camden's mother, Karen had also visited the hall president to school prior to choosing to enroll her son, and she was pleased. She believed it would work well, but Karen's son wasn't feeling too enthused. He started complaining that he didn't want to go to school right away. When that failed, he started acting ill in an attempt to avoid having to go in, but Karen would have none of it. She soon noticed that her kid would always be in a bad attitude when she picked him up from school. Karen explained away her son's odd new conduct by blaming it on first-day school anxiety. Perhaps he was simply taking his time getting comfortable. She didn't worry too much because she knew things would get better eventually. However, the truth was eventually exposed by Halloween. Karen chose to talk to one of the kids in the classroom next to her son's because she couldn't get rid of the weird feeling she was experiencing. The youngster revealed to the shocked mother that her son wasn't enjoying himself at school. He went on to say that his teacher screamed at him all the time. She screamed at her kid so loudly, in fact, that he heard it from his classroom next door. Karen realized she had to take action as soon as she learned this disturbing information. She needed to investigate more and identify the issue. In an attempt to ascertain what was happening, she arranged meetings with the principal and the teacher of her son. The principal agreed with the instructor's position after the teacher justified herself by claiming that her kid wasn't paying attention in class. Karen's frustration increased with every passing minute. She was also informed by the administrator and the instructor that they were concerned about her kid. They said he was unable to focus in class, so Karen brought him for a mental health assessment. Ultimately, the assessment supported her long-held suspicion that her kid was completely problem-free, even in spite of the claims made by his principal and teacher. After voicing her concerns with other parents in the class, she was surprised when they told her that they had never seen a smile on the teacher's face. Then her son confirmed it. He said that his teacher was mean and that she was always picking on him. He said that he does try to pay attention, but I look out the window because I'd rather look at trees and listen than look at her angry face. Karen was done listening. Her son's instructor was so awful that even the other parents had noticed it. She was unable to put up with the teacher picking on her kid specifically and making him feel bad all day. She was done. A few days later, Karen decided to educate her kid instead of sending him to that particular school.